his sponsor sent a vehicle to pick him up. That was Gopal Agarwal, who lived in the now famous small farming town of Butler, Pennsylvania, which was in the news this morning for an attempted assassination of Mr. Trump. He was shot in the ear, grazed in the ear, and he was giving a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And that's the first place of all places that Prabhupada arrived and stayed for about 3 to 4 weeks and preached in various schools, colleges, churches, Krishna consciousness. And when he was there, he stayed at this place. This is the YMCA, Young Men's Christian Association. It was like a hostel, because Gopal Agarwal didn't have any space in his apartment. So they got him a room here at the YMCA where he stayed. So for 1 year, Prabhupada actually had no fixed residence in America. He was moving constantly with no fixed residence, no place to cook. He had to cook in Gopal's kitchen, and these were his rooms. He got his first fixed residence for a few months when he went to New York in January of 1966. And he stayed in this office building, which was the place of Dr. Mishra's yoga ashram, where he taught yoga. And Dr. Mishra gave Prabhupada a little office room where Prabhupada slept. There was no shower. There was no place to cook, but there was only a bathroom. So Prabhupada had to walk, and you can see there's snow in January. Prabhupada had to walk a few blocks away to Dr. Mishra's apartment, where he took his bath and cooked for both Dr. Mishra and for Prabhupada. That's where they took their prasadam, a few blocks away. And this is where Prabhupada stayed from January, February, March until April. When he moved to the Bowery, he was offered a complete floor in the Bowery by one devotee. His name was Harvey Cohn, who became Haridas. And Prabhupada was able to do his cooking there. He was able to preach and give classes. And he introduced prasadam on a very large scale. He was sometimes cooking for 10, 15, 20 people there. How do I close this? Oh. And this is the place where he stayed at the Bowery. You can see a bum, a drunkard, had his residence, and his bed was this wooden plank where he slept, blocking Prabhupada from entering his place. Prabhupada had to step over the bumps. Sometimes they moved. They were very respectful, though, to Prabhupada. They didn't in any way insult him or anything. But Prabhupada had to live in this very poor and dejected area of New York City. It was a slum area, industrial and residential. The government of New York City leased these apartments, very old buildings. These buildings were they were built in the early 1900s. And you can see the sign up here. It says AIR. That's Artist in Residence. If you were an artist, the government would lease you a very cheap apartment that covered the whole floor of a building. And that's where Prabhupada stayed. And he was able to cook, hold class, take his bath, everything. That was his first preaching center, was in the Bowery. And he had a continuous flow of people that were coming to him until he was able to get and move to 26 Second Avenue, which was only about 10 minutes away on the borderline of the Bowery. And this is an artist's conception of what 26 Second Avenue looked like. And Haridas painted this watercolor of Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan, and that was placed in the window of this storefront, which was called Matchless Gifts. And that name remained. They wanted to block it out, but Prabhupada said, no, keep it, because he was offering a matchless gift. So we're going to prove by reading the letters written to Brahmananda from Prabhupada, how Prabhupada was managing the whole society through these letters. Because this was not the age of computers. There was everything was done by letters. And it usually took for a letter to arrive 3, 4, up to 5 days locally, and internationally at least a week. And that's how Prabhupada was managing the whole society through the whole world, especially in Europe. He telling people how to do everything through letters. So, Prabhupada was with us in New York from July 1966 till January, the middle of January of 67. That's when he was invited to go to San Francisco for the Mantra Rock program. This was a poster designed by Haridas for the Mantra Rock, which happened on January 29th. And all the famous rock groups of the day were also attending that program, where Prabhupada introduced the Hare Krishna mantra. So he left around January 15th, and it was Prabhupada's first airplane ride. He never was in an airplane before. So you can imagine what he was thinking, climbing aboard an airship that he was never trained in flying. He knew how to take a ship because he came to America by ship, which took 37 days from India, where he crossed many oceans. He crossed the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the Atlantic Ocean. Crossed many oceans, dangerous oceans, because it was hurricane season. Nobody travels during hurricane season across the seas. And that's where Prabhupada got his 2 heart attacks was in the Arabian Sea, where the waves were only 3 or 4 feet high. The Atlantic, they go up to 40 feet high. And that's in the regular hurricane season. But if there's an actual hurricane, they go up to 100 feet high. But Prabhupada, when he reached the Atlantic, it was like a mirror. And the captain, who had 35 years experience, said never in his life did he see the Atlantic so calm for Prabhupada during hurricane season. It was like a mirror, no waves. So this was, and Prabhupada said that's because Krishna was guiding the Jaladuta. And the name of the Jaladuta is Messenger of the Sea. And Prabhupada was carrying the message of Bhagavad, the message of Krishna. So they go hand in hand. So anyway, this mantra rock, so Prabhupada left New York on January 15th. Now, we in New York, most of the devotees there had only 3, 4, 5, 6 months, up to 6 months association with Prabhupada. There was no real missionary activity going on. Prabhupada was doing all the missionary. He was preaching, he was cooking, he was writing. We were assisting just in typing. Most everybody had jobs, working for the city or private jobs. Satsvarup was working for the city, Rupanuga was working for the city, Brahmananda was a school teacher working for the city. So we couldn't really do any missionary activities for Srila Prabhupada. So everything was being done by Prabhupada. Now Prabhupada was leaving. Who's going to do these things? Who's going to give class? Who's going to lead kirtan? We never led kirtan. Prabhupada led the kirtan. Who's going to do class? Who's going to do the love feast? Prabhupada was cooking the samosas and the kachoris and the new recipes. We knew how to boil water and put some potatoes, but that's all we knew. We knew how to burn the rice, so it was brown, and scraping it off the pot. We were expert at burning everything. Everything, even the cereal in the morning was burnt. So we were expert at burning everything, but we were not expert at cooking. And here Prabhupada's leaving, and now we have to do all these things. So this was a big change in our lives. In fact, I was 18 years old at that time. Now I'm 77. So I was the only one that didn't have a job. So my job was at the temple day and night. In fact, me and Brahmananda were the first ones to move in the temple storefront and sleep there at night and store our personal clothes underneath the Vyasasan. And we took our bath in the sink. There was a large sink in the storefront because we really didn't want to use Srila Prabhupada's bathroom. We said that's for the Acharya. We shouldn't use it for ourselves. Prabhupada didn't mind if we used it, but we minded it. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to show respect. And Prabhupada did tell us that taking bath means cleaning the 9 holes of the body. That's as good as taking bath. So that's what we did at the sink. We cleaned the 9 holes of the body, and that's as good as taking a bath. In those days, we didn't have tilak either. We had to use what artists call fuller's earth. It's used by sculptures to fill in cracks. It's used by artists. But they were not always in stock, at the art store. So Prabhupada said we should use water for tilak. You could apply tilak by using water and saying the names of Vishnu. So we had to learn all these things, but now Prabhupada's leaving. What if we had all these questions? Who are we going to ask? So we were dumbfounded and at a loss that Prabhupada's leaving us. We had so much dependence upon him for doing everything. He was like our father. He acted like our father. Because if we had any personal problems, we would go and discuss with him, which we shouldn't have done because the Acharya is not meant for that personal. But that's how we treated Prabhupada, as our father. So we would go to him for all our problems. And here he's leaving us, and we didn't know when he was coming back. But he wanted to go because he came for his mission. And his mission was to open centers throughout the world. That was his most important aspect of Prabhupada, was his mission. And second was writing books. So there was no way that we could attempt to allay Prabhupada from going to San Francisco. He was going. And he left it up to us. He had complete faith in us to carry on what he was teaching us before. It's amazing, actually, that he would have so much faith in a bunch of malechas and chandalas, sinners who broke all the four regulative principles, and yet he had faith that we would carry on what he was teaching us. Just see the pure devotee. He put so much faith in us. And we were sincere. We wanted to follow. I know I was the youngest one, so I was very careful who I associated with, because many of them were going to restaurants, vegetarian restaurants. There was a restaurant called The Paradox. It was a microbiotic diet there. Brown rice, no spices, no dairy, and the newcomers would go there and eat their dinner or their lunch, but I wouldn't go because Prabhupada said we shouldn't eat in restaurants. Sometimes I would sneak out at 7 o'clock in the evening and have a slice of pizza because I was starving. Because there was no dinner. There was only lunch, which was at 12 or 1 o'clock. And then nothing until night. We only had milk and bananas with Prabhupada in his room. We had honey, sugar, milk, and it was powdered milk. We couldn't afford real milk. We had to use powdered milk. And that doesn't taste very good. But if you put a lot of sugar in, then it tastes good. And Kirtananda would do that. And bananas. And Prabhupada said, if you drink this at night, it will help you to rest very peacefully. And it did. It made us sleepy. And we would take that around 9:30, 10, after Prabhupada's class. We would all go up to his room for milk and bananas. Only 4 or 5 of us would stay back. All the guests would leave. Because the other people who had jobs had to go back and take rest because they had to get up early to go to work. So only a handful would stay back who didn't have to have jobs. So here we're stuck having to do all these things, and Prabhupada's leaving, and who's going to do the class? So we had for the first time, we had devotee meetings. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Working together. This never existed before. We never had a devotee meeting, you see. Prabhupada did start Ishtagoshi, which was questions and answers, which we would discuss on our own after Prabhupada's class. We would ask questions amongst ourselves and some of the persons who were more expert in the philosophy, like Ray Rama, because he was an editor, Satsarup was an editor. So they were able to answer many questions that the younger devotees had, especially myself, because I was just 18 years old. I didn't go to college. I was uneducated. All that I learned from Prabhupada, how to do accounting. That's what I learned from Prabhupada. He taught me how to do the trial balance system, exactly how the banks in India do their system. He taught me that system. It's called the trial balance voucher system. Anyone who wanted money had to sign a paper and bring a receipt. And that's why I got the name Gargamuni. Not because I had money. I was 18 years old. I didn't have any money. But I kept Krishna's money. I didn't misspend it. And Prabhupada had complete faith. I was a stranger in his life. And he only had $900, I remember. That's all he had, was from selling his books by his own labor. Nobody gave donations. I mean, after class, he would pass around a basket with cut up apple as prasadam, and people would take one piece of apple and leave 25 cents, or leave $1 or 10 cents, like that. He would get $4 or $5 as donations, but nobody ever gave any donations. So it was up to Prabhupada to support the temple himself by selling his books. And he was only selling his books for $5 per volume. And devotees weren't buying the whole set of Bhagavatam that Prabhupada brought from India. They were buying one volume at a time at $5. And that's how Prabhupada was supporting the whole society. And now he's leaving, and we had to do all these things. We had to support the temple. So for the first time, we had to work together as a unit, as a devotee community. So our whole lives changed when Prabhupada left and went to San Francisco. So there was a movie, when Prabhupada arrived in San Francisco, he was met by Allen Ginsberg, Mukunda, Shamsunda, a whole host of new people that were interested in Krishna consciousness. And there's a video of it that was made. This is arriving at San Francisco Airport. There's Ralph the dog. That's Shamsunda's dog. He loved kirtan. He was jumping and dancing. Prabhupada liked to see him dancing when he heard the Hare Krishna mantra. That's Allen Ginsberg. There's Mukunda behind Prabhupada. Murari, devotee named Murari, is there. This is his arrival on around January 15th in San Francisco. There. Allen Ginsberg chanting. This is 1967. There's Shamsunda there with the curly hair. This is Hippie Hill at Golden Gate Park, where Prabhupada would go and dance with the hippies. Hare Krishna. Here, there's Jayananda. That's Subal, that Subal. That's Hari Griva and Hari Das with the beards. And Jivananda.
In last meeting, we had discussed
Prabhupada playing the mridanga.
that we have to crush the seed of this material existence.
Prabhupada was always well at home with his environment. He always felt self-satisfied. He was never in a criticizing mood. He would adopt to the American culture way of life without any problems. He was at ease always. Even here, he's dancing with the hippies.
Seed is there. We may be
They're all dancing in their own way, and Prabhupada's doing his dancing,
boy,
completely peaceful.
but because the seed is there, as soon as the effect of such
Prabhupada was learning the American culture, learning how to preach to the Americans. You see,
this is the vision. The same example
he used to sit at Fifth Avenue on the park bench and study the Americans, how they shopped, how they acted.
drops of rain. Again,
He admitted in a conversation he was to study the Americans,
so
how to present the Krishna conscious movement in a way that they could accept it.
then Prahlad Maharaj recommends the Tatra Upaya Sahasranam. There may be
So this is all in 1967,
for
in January.
not wipe out.
Prabhupada stayed there
Sometimes in the
January, February, March, up to the middle of April.
but Prahlad Maharaj says the Sahasranam Ayam Bhagavatu.
And that's when he wrote his first letters to Brahmananda. The first letter came on January 19th. I gotta carry 3 glasses with me. One for the computer, one for reading, and one for just ordering. So this is written on January 19th, 1967, and Prabhupada addresses it to all the major devotees in New York. My dear Brahmananda, Hari Griva, Kirtanananda, Satsvarupa, Gargamuni, Achyutananda, and Jadharani. Please accept my greetings and blessings of Guru Gauranga Gidhari Gandhavika. Prabhupada never used that again. That's in other letters. This is the first time he used that. You have already got the news of our safe arrival and good reception by the devotees here. Mr. Allen Ginsberg and about 50 or 60 others received us at the airport when I arrived at my apartment. There were some press reporters also who took note of my mission. 2-3 newspapers like the Examiner and the Chronicles have already published the report. One of the reports is sent herewith. Please find. I wish that 1,000 copies of this report may be offset printed at once, and 100 copies of the same may be sent here as soon as possible. I have a copy of that. How do I get to the So this is the Examiner newspaper. Very nice article. Prabhupada wanted 1,000 copies at once. And he wanted 100 copies to be sent as soon as possible because it's a very nice introduction to the Krishna conscious movement. I understand that you are feeling my absence. Well, we sure were, because we had to do everything that Prabhupada was doing as a one-man army. At his age of 70, he was doing everything, and here we, young boys and girls, had to do everything. So we were missing his absence. Krishna will give you strength. Now here's the first instruction that we received through the letters. First instruction, and it's actually an introduction to the first Guru worship of Guru, because there was no worship of Guru in those days. We didn't even have a picture of Prabhupada in those days. So Prabhupada says here, Krishna will give you strength. Physical presence is immaterial. Presence of the transcendental sound received from the spiritual master should be the guidance of life. That will make our spiritual life successful. If you feel very strongly about my absence, you may place my pictures on my sitting places, and this will be a source of inspiration for you. So this is the beginning of Guru Puja. Although there was no formal prayers or anything, but Prabhupada said we could put, but we didn't even have a picture of Prabhupada to put on his Vyasasana. We had to have Guru Das in San Francisco take a picture and send it to us, to take a picture that was proper. So, this is the first picture that we worshipped in New York. It was in black and white, not color. And there it shows Prabhupada with his Srimad Bhagavatam set that he brought from India. This is the very first picture worshipped by us that we put on the Vyasasana in New York City. It's a very nice photo showing the Acharya sitting properly with his books. Always with his books. I am very much anxious to hear about the final decision of the House. Oh, the House. I saw this house. Prabhupada attended a function at the Ramakrishna Mission before he started ISKCON. And they had a very nice building on a tree-lined street in Manhattan, Upper Manhattan. Beautiful area, with trees all up and down the street. And Prabhupada wanted a building like that. Somehow or another, through Kirtanananda, we found a building was for sale. Now, this building was a historical building from the Revolutionary War. It was being reconditioned, rebuilt, even with the red bricks like they had in those days, the orange bricks. It was a small building, only about 3 stories high. And we went to see this building. It was being sold for $200,000. Now we didn't even have $1,000. And here Prabhupada's going to shoot the rhino. Not run with the rhino. I don't know why Shamsunda changed Prabhupada's words. He quoted Prabhupada saying, running with the rhinos with the Swami. It's not running with it's shooting the rhino. I have the original quote. There is no such thing as running with it. It's shooting the rhino. So here Prabhupada shooting the rhino and buying a $200,000 house when we don't even have $1,000? How are we going to pay for it? But Prabhupada wanted the house. And he thought we could get a mortgage if devotees signed for it, and we could get this house. So Prabhupada was very concerned about this house. He wanted it very badly. I'm very much anxious to hear. I wish to open the house by the 1st of March, 1967. An arrangement may be done dexterously in this connection. I have not yet received the tapes for dictaphone, and I have sent you tapes yesterday. Please offer my blessings to Sriman Neil. Neil was the boy who was able to type the dictaphone tapes. Nobody could learn the way of using the foot pedal and the fingers in a synchronized way and type from the dictaphone. Maybe it was from taking too much marijuana or LSD, but you had to coordinate your foot with the foot pedal of the dictaphone with typing on the typewriter, because you controlled the dictaphone with your feet, not with your hands. Your hands were typing. So by touching the foot pedal, you would go forward, backwards, fast backwards, stop, go, pause. Nobody could learn that, but Neil, Bhakta Neil, knew how to do that, and he could type 60 words a minute. So he was typing all the tapes for Prabhupada and sending them to San Francisco. Later, he himself went to San Francisco to type for Prabhupada. But for the time being, it was all done by mail. And Prabhupada, he was working not only on the Bhagavad-Gita, we had already got approval from Macmillan to do an abridged version of Gita. But Prabhupada wasn't satisfied with that. He wanted to print the full manuscript, which was almost 800 pages. And Macmillan wanted a no more than 250-page book. So we had to rewrite the whole Gita in an abridged format, leaving out many of the purports or commentaries. So Prabhupada was working on that, and he was starting the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, or the commentary on the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. He started lecturing on that in November of 1966, even before giving lectures on Bhagavatam. He was giving the highest standard of preaching of the Gopi Leela before Bhagavatam. And we didn't understand any of those lectures. But Prabhupada was lecturing in New York starting in November of 1966. You can listen to them. There's about 80 of them. So Srimad Ray Rama, he also went to San Francisco. He was the editor of Back to Godhead, very good editor. His job was to edit comic book text. He worked for comic book companies, editing the text used in comic books. He is cooking and distributing prasadam to the devotees, numbering sometimes 70. It is very encouraging. I think this center will be a very nice branch without delay. Everything is perspective. Hope you are well and awaiting an early reply. Yours affectionately, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So that's the very first letter that we received from Prabhupada on January 19th, 4 days after he arrived. And we learned so much from this letter that Prabhupada had started his second successful center very easily. I mean, Prabhupada wasn't even there, and there were people gathering and inviting him to come to San Francisco. That in itself shows the power of the transcendental vibration of both Prabhupada and the Hare Krishna mantra, that people were interested even before meeting Prabhupada. What to speak when he arrived there, how much interest there was, and how many joined. I went there in October of 1967. I was in San Francisco because Prabhupada was returning from India from his Ayurvedic treatment in December of 67. So I was finished with printing Back to Godhead on the mimeograph because they had started printing on a press. So I didn't have to do the mimeograph anymore. The mimeograph machines were finished. The new technology, offset printing, took over, you see. So I went there and I saw San Francisco, and it was the best place for the Hare Krishna mantra because people spent outdoors more. In New York was an indoor city because it's cold. But San Francisco was full of sun. We barely saw the sun in New York. It was always overclouded or smog or whatever. So people spent indoors, which means they read more. In San Francisco, they were in the parks more, chanting and dancing. So the chanting really took off in San Francisco, more than in New York, because we couldn't go to the outdoor chanting during the winter time. The winters are very harsh in New York. So we had met and gathered that Ray Rama, he finally came back because he had to do back to Godhead, which is now being printed on offset printing. And he was giving the classes also, because we had to keep the morning class going and the evening classes on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Prabhupada would lecture on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And every morning, 7 days a week, he would give classes. So we kept that going. Kirtananda would give class, sometimes Brahmananda. So everything was going on. Kirtananda was cooking, but he was not cooking the same as Prabhupada, but he was maintaining. He was burning less because he was getting more experience. So we had less burnt prasadam than normal. We were used to the burnt prasadam, especially the morning cereal, the porridge. We call it porridge in those days. So the next letter came.
Was Brahmananda working?
Yes, Brahmananda was a New York City public school teacher. He was a substitute teacher, so he worked in different schools at different times, but mostly he worked at a Catholic school, very conservative school. In fact, they were so conservative, they said, "Why do you have a shaved head?" Only a few people had shaved heads in those days. Kirtananda and Brahmananda. Satsrup had very short hair, but for shaved heads, it was only Brahmananda and Kirtananda that had. What's that? Is there sugar in there? There's sugar? No. I can't eat sugar. I'm sugar-free. I'm salt-free and sugar-free. I use 1 kilo of lemons a week for salt. So Brahmananda, Prabhupada mentions about Brahmananda that he's the first one to take responsibility. That's why he was made president. Why doesn't it come in big? Prabhupada says, Srila Prabhupada says, when Brahmananda came, I got little relief. I made him the president. He is a very saintly person, Prabhupada says. This is from the Veda base. Prabhupada, from the very beginning, he came voluntarily. He immediately offered whatever he got, his paycheck. His full paycheck, he would give $400 to Prabhupada. And that the rent for the apartment and for the storefront came to $200 for both. But then there was the gas bill, the phone bill, this and that. So Brahmananda gave everything. Practically after his joining, I got some relief because everything was on Prabhupada's shoulders. Now Brahmananda took away all that pressure by moving into the temple and giving his full paycheck to Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, Prabhupada says, I had to collect. When Brahmananda came, I got little relief. I made him the president. He's a very saintly person. That's from a room conversation in 1976. And then Prabhupada says about Brahmananda in a letter, Krishna has sent you to me to help me in my mission. As you are my sincere spiritual son, Krishna will dictate to you what to do in this connection. So I have full faith in you, and you can determine as Krishna speaks within your heart. I mean, Prabhupada placed so much faith in us that Krishna would talk to us directly in our heart already. The sinful malechas who are breaking every principle, and yet Prabhupada, by his potency, he was purifying us and allowing us to deal directly with Krishna through the heart. Just see the power of a pure devotee. We cannot comprehend the mercy of a pure devotee. I remember in Mayapur, in the GBC meeting after, me and Tamal were in Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada looked at us very seriously. He said, never underestimate the mercy of Lord Nityananda. You cannot understand the mercy. Never underestimate. And that's how we feel about Prabhupada. He gave us so much mercy and so much potency to carry on his movement, even though we were not even qualified. We didn't know the Vedas. We weren't advanced in the Vedanta and all the arguments. But still we were carrying on the movement by just accepting what Prabhupada said and repeating it. That's it. That's all we have to do. We just have to, just like parrots. Or actually, Brahmananda, there's a conversation where Brahmananda says that we are your puppet. He says, no, Prabhupada says, no, we are a puppet. We are all puppets of Krishna. We all have to become puppets. Simply be guided by Krishna without adding or subtracting. So from the very beginning, he was teaching that. And it's very simple. We just have to repeat what he taught us. That's it. We don't have to add or subtract. So everything was coming down from Brahmananda's letters. Mostly Prabhupada was writing, he was answering all letters, but mostly he was sending all instructions through Brahmananda's letters. The next letter came 6 days later, on January 25th. And again, it comes from Frederick Street, San Francisco. That was their storefront on Frederick Street. I'm due receipt of your letter of the 21st instant, and later on yesterday I have received 5 tapes in good condition, out of which I have sent today 2 tapes duly recorded. So long I am here, I shall send you 2 tapes duly recorded every day. And similarly, you also send me 2 tapes daily, so there'll be no difficulty. So Prabhupada was continuing his translation work due to the dictaphone. That's how dictaphone changed publishing, because Prabhupada didn't have to type himself, which I used to watch him in his room. He would type with these 2 index fingers like this. And that's why I was thinking, it's going to take 300 years to get a book. And that's when Krishna drove me to the Grundig store to get the dictaphone, and that changed the publishing. While coming to San Francisco, I advised both Kirtananda and Gargamuni to dispatch 1 tape reel to India. It was duly packed and addressed as follows: to Sri Radharaman Das Brahmachari, and he gives the address. And Prabhupada wants to know if we did this. I'm sure we did. Then Prabhupada mentions about Karlapati. Karlapati was actually the first, I met him once, was the first black devotee to join. But he was very light-skinned. He was very educated. He was a professor. I mean, I was told by devotees at that time that him and Timothy Leary invented LSD. I don't know how true that was, but that's what I was told. I was gullible in those days. I was 18 years old, so I listened to everybody. Sriman Karlapati, his name was Carl Jurgens, has sent me 1 check for $10, which I'm enclosing herewith for credit of his account, and he has said that some of his relatives would pay $50. If not received, please let Sri Karlapati be informed of his dues till now, and he will remit. And he was living in Greece. Also, please send him all copies of Back to Godhead and other literatures so far published. He's very anxious to get my commentary on Bhagavad-Gita. So let me know if there's any possibility of publishing this book from USA. Even though we had an agreement with Macmillan, Prabhupada still wanted to print his Bhagavad-Gita in full, the 800 pages. He was not happy with the abridged version at all. I shall immediately arrange for printing in India. The translation commentary is already finished. I shall begin Chaitanya Chaitamrita essays and texts. That became teachings of Lord Chaitanya he was working on. If I'm assisted by 1 expert typewriter like Neil, as he is doing now, we can publish every 3 months a book. And the more we have books, the more we become respectable. So Prabhupada's revealing the backbone of his mission: open centers and print books. You see, this is becoming more revealed to us as time goes on. It is understood that $5,000 have already been accredited into the account of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness on January 23rd, 1966. Where did this 5,000 come from? This was donated, the first donation Prabhupada ever received was donated by Jayananda. He gave $5,000. Later on, Brahmananda donated also 5,000, which included 3,500 from him and 1,500 from my bar mitzvah money. I cashed in my bonds. Because when you get bar mitzvah, people give you savings bond, government bonds. You get 7% interest. So I cashed them in and I got $1,500. I gave it to Prabhupada to print the TLC. And that's how the TLC got printed. It was $6,000. So $5,000 came from me and Brahmananda, and $1,000 came from Prabhupada from the sales of his books. Then Prabhupada talks about the house, and he talks about instruments. Then he says, while Kirtananda coming, he may bring with him some stationery and envelopes of the society. So Kirtananda was leaving. So he had trained somebody else to do cooking. I think it was maybe Rohini Kumar or Rishi Kumar. While Kirtananda coming, he may bring with him stationery and envelopes of the society, as well as dry mango juice. That was dry mango. I used to get that for Prabhupada. There was no Indian grocery in New York at that time, but there was an Arab grocery. And in that Arab grocery, they had a section of Indian foods. And one of the most important things that Prabhupada bought there was poppers and dried mango from India. Dried fruit. It was dried mango. He had that after his lunch every day. He had that dried mango. So Prabhupada wanted Kirtananda to bring that with him, some dried mango. Here everything is going well in San Francisco. 4 devotees have been initiated and 2 devotees have been married. On the marriage ceremony, there was extraordinary gatherings, and all of them were distributed prasadam. Sriman Ranchor, assisted by some girls, prepared kachori, samu, ISKCON balls, puri, chutney, etc. And there were many fruits also, and all the guests enjoyed the prasadam very nicely. And Prabhupada names the initiations: Haridas, who was Harvey Cohn, Shamsundar, Malati, and Harsharani. In the morning class, there are not less than 25 students, and in the evening, there are 30 to 50 students. And I think they are gradually understanding the philosophy seriously. Sriman Mukunda Das has in view a plot of land, about 60 acres for the society, and he wishes to organize our community camp there. It is very encouraging. Please reply this letter point by point and let me know the progress of the house purchasing negotiation. Hope you are doing well with greater enthusiasm, even though I am absent. See? Please take care of Jodharani. She was always ill. She always had ill health, and Prabhupada was always concerned for her health. And all her letters, if you read her letters in the database, Prabhupada was always concerned for her health, so that her painting may go on very nicely. She's entrusted with a great responsibility, because Prabhupada wanted in each of his books from 50 to 100 paintings. In each book, he wanted. With sincere blessings for you all, I am your ever well-wisher. So you see, Prabhupada had to operate 2 centers. He had to guide the one in San Francisco and guide the one in New York, where he wasn't physically present. So he had to keep everything going and translate at the same time, do banking. I mean, there was so much on Prabhupada's consciousness that at such an advanced age that he was a Superman. And he was increasing and increasing, encouraging people to open. The next center would open would be Montreal, you see. Somehow or other, that's why the newspapers also would describe Prabhupada as a 74-year-old young man. Because he acted like a young man. He had the energy of a young man. He was animated like a young man, especially when he talked. He had so many nice expressions, which, by the way, is my hobby now. I take photographs because there's hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of photos that are blurry, and devotees were scared of moving close to Prabhupada and taking his picture. So they would take it from far away. So if they're high resolution, I blow them up, but then they get blurry. So I use AI to make them unblurred. And now I developed a hobby of meditating on Prabhupada's innumerable expressions. I've never seen so many expressions in one person as I've seen in Prabhupada. Facial expressions. So many. And you can see them on my Facebook page. People say I have the best photographs of Prabhupada they've ever seen on my Facebook page. You can go to Gargamuni Das 1966, Gregory Gargamuni Sharf, or Gregory Michael Sharf is my main page. And you can see all these photographs. I have about 2,500 photos on there right now. And you can see Prabhupada. So anyway, Prabhupada was expanding all on his own and pushing us to do the same. We had the energy, but where did Prabhupada get his energy? That is the great mystery. That we do not know. Of course, we could see it being exhibited, that it was coming from Krishna. So the last letter for January, it's now 11:30, so I'm on time, came on January 30th. That's the last letter for January of 1967. Yeah, these are just to Brahmananda. My dear Brahmananda, on due receipt of your letter of the 28th instant, I was very much eager to get the records, but they are still delayed. Now, the first record was Krishna Consciousness, and it was made before Prabhupada went to Francisco. It was made in December. One record producer, Mr. Coleman, he went to Tompkins Square Park on a weekend and witnessed the chanting of Hare Krishna. And he wanted to make a record of it. So he called the temple, and Brahmananda arranged a meeting between Mr. Coleman and Prabhupada. This was in December, before San Francisco. And Mr. Coleman came, he says, I want to record your kirtan. But Prabhupada was not very interested. He said, because people listen to one record and then they listen to another record. There's no benefit to it, he said. But Mr. Coleman said, but you can speak. He said, oh, I can speak? Then I will do. And that's where Prabhupada was able to explain the mantra on that record as well as sing the mantra. And so we made that record, and it was quite a story how we made that record, because Prabhupada didn't have a mridanga. And how are you going to lead kirtan without a mridanga? We couldn't use that little tom-tom. We called it a bongo drum. That wasn't a very good drum. But the night before, a strange thing occurred. An African man came with a big wooden mridanga. It was this long, and it was very heavy. It was made of wood, and it had blocks of wood all around it where you could pull the straps and change the tone of either side of the drum, the small side and the big side. You could change the tone. And we asked him, can we use this for the recording? He said, oh yeah, can we keep it overnight? Oh yes. And Prabhupada experimented on it and played it, and that drum was used on that Hare Krishna record, the Krishna conscious record. And it was perfect. We didn't have cartels though. We had one pair of cartels only, which Narayan Maharaj sent to Prabhupada. Prabhupada ordered 10, but he only sent one. So we had one pair of cartels. Then we brought some bells and finger cymbals. I found finger cymbals. I used to sell them in the temple. It was good income because everybody would buy the finger cymbals. They cost me $3. I'd sell them for $7 and gave the money to the temple. I had a little gift shop in the rear of the temple and sell incense and things like that. It helped the temple because there was no steady income in those days. You see, aside from devotees who were working, they give $10, $20. And we didn't have any books. We had only Back to Godhead. The Bhagavatams were almost sold out. There were no more sets left because there were only second and third volumes left only. There was no first volumes left. They were gone. So in this way, we were able to earn a little income from this. So that's how the record was made. And so Prabhupada wanted that record in San Francisco, but the record producer was very slow in giving us the records because someone had to pay the record manufacturer before getting the record, and he didn't want to pay. And he wanted us to pay, but we didn't have any money to pay, so we didn't get any records. It took a very long time, and Prabhupada was constantly, for about a month or two, he wanted me to send those records, but I couldn't, because we couldn't. There were about 4,000 or 5,000 records sitting in a warehouse, but we had to pay for it. But Mr. Coleman didn't want to front the money. So that was a problem. So I'm eager to receive these records, but they're still delayed. Our yesterday's function was very successful. There are about 1,500 or more audience, and all of them chanted and danced continually. That's at the Mantra Rock program. They continually chanted for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I came back at 11:30 at night. I think Sriman Haridas Brahmachari will contribute $1,000 towards the building fund at New York. I am sorry that the lawyer of the owner is delaying the matter. Will the proprietor of the house be carried by the lawyer? If it is so, what is the use of wasting time in that way? If they are serious, they must finish the business without delay. I wish that they must enter the house by the 1st of March. What Prabhupada didn't know, or maybe he did know, that we were being cheated by a handful of lawyers. 6 lawyers were involved in this. And they were trying to cheat us of the $5,000 deposit that we gave, which was Jayananda's money. And we almost lost it, you see, in due course of time. Thankfully, we got it returned, except for $1,200 we lost. But we were actually being cheated. They had no intention of selling this house. First of all, it was a historical site, and they didn't want a bunch of Hare Krishnas taking over a pre-revolutionary building built in the 1700s to a bunch of Hare Krishnas. So they had no intention, but they sure, these naive young boys will take advantage of them and steal their $5,000 and divide it up. Easy. So that's what was going on. Then, meanwhile, in October, before Prabhupada went, a filmmaker came and filmed the first documentary film about Prabhupada and his movement. And it was called Matchless Gifts. It was about 40 or 50 minutes long. So Prabhupada wanted to secure a copy of each film so far taking of us while performing kirtan. If required, we may pay something for this. Better they should contribute a film to the society, as we have not charged anything. If we get the films, we could then purchase a projector to show in different places. Prabhupada had all kinds of ideas for preaching that we didn't have. So he was guiding us how to preach, how to begin the mission, you see. Even though we had other responsibilities of jobs and this and that, he wanted us to preach also. They're all purchasing. Please expedite the matter. One thing you may note also as yes, we didn't know how to address, because we were writing letters to Prabhupada and to each other, and the movement was expanding. There were more initiations going on. What is the proper etiquette? We didn't know that. How do we address each other? How do we address the Guru? So again, Prabhupada's teaching us through the letters, guiding us. One thing you may note also as a matter of etiquette, the spiritual master is addressed as His Divine Grace. A God brother is addressed as His Grace or Her Grace. And any sannyasi is addressed as His Holiness. I am very much anxious to know about the progress of the house in this, as well as the records. Prabhupada was under great pressure. He wanted this house so badly, but we were being cheated. So those are the first three letters. We'll get into more of the letters as time goes on, and you'll see more instructions coming from Prabhupada, how to direct the society, giving us ideas, especially in book distribution. There was no book distribution. First of all, we had no books. We just had the magazine. But we would only distribute the magazine if we went to a kirtan function in the park, or if there was no Sankirtan party in those days. Just on weekends we would go to the park and do Sankirtan. And that would be led by Brahmananda. I have a film showing, especially after Prabhupada left. Wrong glasses. This is in New York City with Prabhupada in 1966, but we're not under the tree because they were doing gardening. So we're in front of the amphitheater, which was near the tree. Allen Ginsberg is there. You can see him chanting. Prabhupada is leading the kirtan in the middle. You can see how many people. There's Mr. Green. There's Brahmananda. His name was Jagannath. Prabhupada called him Green. He never called him by his spiritual name. He said, green. He would say green. There's Prabhupada. Look at the Prabhupada. He's sitting on the ground with people standing all around him. I mean, there's Umapati holding the Sankirtan painting. Here's Brahmananda again. There's green. His name was Jagannath. We had a harmonium, but it didn't work. The keys didn't work. They were all broken. It was donated by Allen Ginsberg. So only the droning part would work, but the keys didn't work. After Prabhupada went back to India, then Brahmananda led the kirtan. It says May 1968, but it's not. It's 67, the summer of 67. Oops. There's Brahmananda, and this is at the tree. We put the mantra up so people could follow. That was something new, so they could follow the mantra and chant along with us. We brought Kirtananda's rug that he brought from India many years ago when he visited India. We put the rug out so people can sit down. And we kept the Tompkins Square Park kirtans going every weekend. And there are, by 67, there are a lot of devotees. There's Jodharani. You want to say something? No, baby said you wanted to speak. Oh, we had these little Jagannath. These came from San Francisco. This is a real story to hear. How did Jagannath get around our necks? Well, it happened in San Francisco. The devotees would go to a store called Cost Plus Imports, and it was owned by an Indian, and he imported all kinds of handicrafts from India. And devotees would go there to get their Indian clothes, beads, all kinds of stuff. And they saw these little figurines of Jagannath, Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram, and they brought them back. They said, it must have some significance. And they wanted to ask Prabhupada, what is this? Because it looked like an Indian totem pole. You stack them up on top of each other. The American Indians, they worship the totem pole. And if you put these figurines on top of one another, it looked like an American Indian totem pole, right? So that people thought that. So they asked Prabhupada, what is the significance? As soon as Prabhupada saw it, he bowed down. Jagannath has come to us. And that's how Jagannath came. And that's how San Francisco became New Jagannath Puri. And that's how the first deity of ISKCON was installed in San Francisco in March of 1968. That was the first deity. That wasn't the first deity. We got the first deity, me and Brahmananda, of Madan Mohan, which was donated by an Indian, which is now in Potomac Temple. That was the first deity of ISKCON. That came to us before Jagannath. Before, as soon as Prabhupada left for San Francisco in '67 in January, about a week after he left, that deity, Madan Mohan, came to us. So that came before Jagannath. But it wasn't installed until much years later. But the first installed deity was Lord Jagannath in San Francisco in March of 1968. The first Rath Yatra, of course, was in '67. I have a movie of it. This is the first Rath Yatra. It was in the summer of '67. That's Jamuna. This is in the Frederick. That's Subal dancing wildly. See the finger symbols. Those are very popular. This is in the San Francisco temple. Those are carved by Shamsunda. He did 4 sets. Jagannath came to New York in 1969. There's Kartamashi. That was named by Prabhupada. It means the big boss, because he's standing like the big boss. No, but if when you see the cart, the pickup truck with the flatbed, all 3 of them are there. Yeah. There's the pickup truck and the flatbed. And that's the first Rath Yatra. And we have our own dancers leading. With police escort. This is 1967, summer. This is what the Frisco temple looked like from an artist's view. The door was made by Shamsunda. That's a real door. He was a carpenter by trade, so he was very good at sculpting Jagannath. He showed me different kinds of woods that he was using. Some were from Africa, very heavy, hardwood. No bugs could eat those wood. So this is a store. It had a kitchen also, a very big kitchen, this storefront. It was a perfect temple. A lot of space. And it was just near the park, the Golden Gate Park, within walking distance. Prabhupada would go on his morning walks there. That's where I was the first to record the morning walks. It happened in March of 1968. Nobody had ever recorded, because they didn't come out with a portable tape recorder until that year. And I carried it. It was very heavy. It uses 8 big batteries, the D batteries, 8 of them. And I had to tie a strap around. It was very heavy to carry. And I recorded the first morning walk there. It's on the Veda base. This is what the Frederick Temple looked on the inside. Very spacious place. And in this room is where the kitchen was. There was a shower also. I had a store next door where I had an India import store. I worked out a deal with some Indians from Rhode Island, and they shipped me all kinds of incense and clothes and this, and I would give money to to help support the San Francisco temple. So I had a storefront right next door. And next door on the other side were the Hells Angels, the diggers. They were giving out free peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And they didn't like us giving free prasadam because nobody was going for their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They were coming to us for prasadam. So we always got into little skirmishes with the Hells Angels because they were supporting the diggers. They were called the diggers. So Prabhupada liked Ralph the dog. In fact, he talked about Ralph the dog. I don't know why this doesn't come out big size. On my computer, it comes out big size. Oh, yeah, Notepad. I put it in Notepad. See? It comes out small. Anyway, Prabhupada asked, "Where is your dog?" He asked Malati. And Malati says, "Oh, he's gone." Prabhupada says, "Gone?" And he laughs. Malati says, "Yes, some very nice people who worship dogs took him." And Prabhupada says, "The dogs saw that my master has become devotee, so it is useless to keep here." And Malati said, "Yeah, these people who took him, they think he's a person. They treat him like a person." And Prabhupada said, "He is a person. The dog is a person. Why imperson?" See, Prabhupada turns it into a preaching. Impersonalism, you see. They were saying that the dog is not a person. He is a person. He's a spirit soul, so he's a person. Dog is person also. This was in March of '68. When Prabhupada had his stroke, the San Francisco devotees invited him to come to California with the sunlight and the sea, you'll get better. So they rented a house at a place called Stinson Beach, which was outside of San Francisco. So Prabhupada went there thinking that he could get better without going back to India for Ayurvedic treatment. But he didn't like that place. First of all, it was too far from the temple, and it was on a winding mountain road into a valley near the ocean. And Prabhupada got dizzy from the trip. And there was no place to walk for morning walks. So it didn't turn out very good for him at that place. So when he decided that he would have to return to India for a proper treatment. So Gurudas, he snapped this picture which shows Prabhupada's expression, how sad he was that he had to leave America and go back to India, because we didn't know if he was going to come back or not, whether the treatment would be good. So this is his expression. Oh, this comes out small too. Sheesh. My computer's is 10 years old and better than this one. Where's the magnifying glass? I mean, I don't have another photograph that shows that expression on Prabhupada's face. This is the only one. He didn't want to go back to India because he just started his movement, and there was such a good response in New York, San Francisco, wherever he went. People were joining. They wanted to become initiated. They wanted to follow him. They didn't care about the four regs. They said, we wanted to hear about Krishna. They were so interested in Krishna. They were willing to follow the four regs. That was unheard of in those days. This is drugs, sex, and rock and roll period of history in America. And they were willing to give up all that for an old man. I mean, this shows the spiritual potency of Prabhupada, that he could change everybody simply by talking about Krishna. So he was very sad leaving there. Even on a more sad picture, when Prabhupada's at the airport, I have on my other computer, when Prabhupada's at the airport in New York, it's almost you can see tears in his eyes as he's going to go on the airplane, Air India, back to India. And he stayed there for 6 months. He left on July 24th, which is just in a few days. I'm going to publish the letter, a handwritten letter that Brahmananda got from London Airport that Prabhupada wrote to Brahmananda on July 24th for the stopover on his way back to India. I'm going to put that on my Facebook. That will come on the next. Is Brahmananda's birthday, yeah. The 14th, 1943, he was born. And ISKCON was born on July 13th, 1966, so 1 year apart. 82, if you include the first year as his first birthday. I always meditate on this because so at one time in Seattle, I had recorded, Prabhupada was writing a letter to, in condolence of Keshav Maharaj's disappearance, and he wanted all of the devotees to sign the condolence paper. So he also signed it. And this is his signature. So I had recorded, if you look on his signature, he signs a signature, makes 2 dots, and draws a line. So my microphone recorded him signing his signature. If you listen very closely, I don't know if, no, the sound is not picking it up. It's not loud enough. If there's good sound, you can hear the 2 dots and the line being drawn. So this was a movie made in 1967 also this is how Brahmananda looked. At Tompkins Square Park. And this is this is a first kirtan at Tompkins Square Park while Prabhupada was in India. This is 1967. Somebody filmed it at the tree. There's a tree with the picture of the Sankirtan party at Chachutananda. That's me there with the red beads. I'm 18 years old there. By then we had cartels. We get all kinds of people bring instruments. They get up and dance. That's Jodharani. There's Satsarup, Bhakti Das. That's the bongo drum. That's Bhakta Das.
Ma nella rivolta dei giovani di tutto il mondo, oggi spesso si inserisce un fenomeno allarmante, è il fenomeno degli allucinogeni.
Tompkins Square became a meeting place every Sunday. People would come just for the kirtans. They loved it so much, especially when Prabhupada would come.
Uno di essi scrive sull'asfalto: We are glad. Noi siamo felici.
Very short footage of the early days. Oh, in 2011, the mayor put a sign at the tree. I don't know if you can read it. And this is what the sign said. One of Tompkins Square's most prominent features is a collection of venerable American elm trees. One elm in particularly, located next to the semicircular arrangement of benches in the park center, is important to adherents of the Hare Krishna religion. After coming to the United States in September '65, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the Indian spiritual leader, founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in New York. He worked from a storefront on nearby 2nd Avenue that he used as the Society's American headquarters. Prabhupada and his disciples gathered in Tompkins Square Park in the fall of 1966 to introduce the East Village to the group's distinctive 16-word mantra. And they printed the Hare Krishna mantra. The sign, I don't know if it's still there, but this is 2011. On October 9th, 1966, Prabhupada and his followers sat beneath this tree and held the first outdoor chanting session outside of India. Participants chanted for 2 hours as they played cymbals, tambourines, and other percussion instruments. The event is recognized as the founding of the Hare Krishna religion in the United States. Prabhupada's diverse group that day included beat poet Allen Ginsberg. Krishna adherents continue to return to the tree to acknowledge its significance. American elm trees are known for their towering canopies, which provide abundant shade through spring, summer, and fall. It is rare today to find such a collection of American elms, since many of the mature elms planted across the country have been killed by the Dutch elm disease. This incurable disease, a fungus carried by the bark beetles, which colonized on the branches of the elm trees, swept across the United States in the 1930s and remains a threat to the park collection of elms. Despite having lost at least 34 of the trees, Tompkins Square Park still hosts a large assembly of elms, which continue to this day to enchant park patrons. The East Village Park Conservancy, a volunteer group, raises significant private funds for the ongoing care and maintenance of the American elms and other historic. And notice, Prabhupada's elm tree never got sick because of the chanting. And it's still there after 50 years. Michael Bloomberg, who is the mayor, he put this sign there.